So here we go. I'm ready for this one. We didn't get to talk to Petro last week. I was out of town, so we shelved the podcast. We got a lot to get into. We'll do a little gambling on the back end, but I really wanted to talk about the big theme around sports. And since Seren and I are pretty intertwined in different football communities, right, with Las Vegas and Kansas City, tonight I wanted to kind of delve into the many stories that are coming out about football guy, right? Football guy, the coach, football guy. Because I think there's a lot of links we can draw between some troubled football situations, John Gruden, Ed O, and others, right?
Right.
Nick Rolovich. We can get into all that stuff tonight. And I'll start by saying anyone who listens to Petro and watches his podcast, anyone who listens to me, watches the podcast, knows that I think we are far from like softies and wallflowers. And I'll admit it. Like I don't know if I'm a man's man, but like I'm on the guy team, right? So I don't mind shooting the bull, talking some trash, complaining. Petro doesn't like when I say this, but so I'll just take it on myself. I don't mind bullying people and seeing if they're going to push back. Like, let's go. Let's test it, right? So as we get into this conversation, like, and you hear us, if we're getting on guys like Ed Orgeron and Gruden, understand, like I'm not soft. Like, I like this world, and I always say when Hard Knocks is on, like I get crazy around Hard Knocks. I'm like, my God, I wish the workplace was like this, right? Where there's no punches pulled and there's name calling, and it's immature, but whatever. But there's a straightforward approach, right? Because
There's name calling. That's what you appreciate.
Well, I don't want name calling, but because that is immature. We got to get rid of that stuff. But the dancing around people and I gotta be nice here and I gotta be careful, and I hate that. I understand the world is changing, so I've tried to adjust. So I'm just saying right out of the gates, like believe me, I'm not a softie, right? So I'm gonna start with Gruden. So what Gruden said did not shock me. Like I hear that from football people. That is a guy's world. That is locker room stuff, right?
And the further back you go, that was you get more and more of it.
Yep. Yeah. But the funny thing is a lot of the excuses around Gruden revolve around his age. And Gruden's 58. I have a brother who's 59, right? And I spent like 4 days around my brother, my older brother. I have a younger brother too, who's a little bit younger than me. But my older is 59, but he's not really a sports guy. And like he doesn't speak like that. And like he's progressed over the years. And you know what? I'll be honest. The homophobic F word, I think unfortunately a lot of us grew up in an era where like you didn't process what it meant. Eventually we were told, hey, this is why that's wrong. And you grow and you stop using it. And I'm certainly aware that Gruden's era and my brother's era, who's about the same age, like I said, he's 59, Gruden's 58. Like you said stuff like that in the late 70s and early 80s when you were a kid, and maybe into the 90s when you were a college student. And then eventually it was like, okay, this is why it's wrong. Stop doing it. But there are some of us who grow, and I believe me, I still got to get better, like in terms of the guy versus female thing, right? I admit that. Like sometimes I'm like, but you try to grow. But there's a resistance when I talk about football guy. There's a resistance in the football world because and there's even a resistance to us. Like we're not, you guys aren't football people. There's this shell, and that to me, that's what Gruden represents, and I think that's what Ed Orgeron represents, and in a way, that's what Rolovich represents. There's football guy, and they can't quite get out of it. Like they say they're getting out of it, but deep down, Petro, they're not really coming out of it. They haven't adjusted, they haven't morphed, they haven't grown.
I think that's true, and I don't know if it's football guy as much as it's power guy. Right. I've said I don't know that anybody goes as unchecked in society as a successful Power 5 college football coach. Right. They literally answer to almost no one. And, I was talking to Chip Patterson from CBS Sports today, does the Cover 3 podcast, and I think he's a really bright guy. And we talked a lot about Ed Orgeron, and we talked a lot about his, who would replace him and all those kind of things. But he's like, listen, I'm not naive. If Ed Orgeron's undefeated right now, we're not having this conversation, right? We can talk about all the faults. And I think that speaks twofold. One, it speaks to how powerful you are as a head football coach in college football. It speaks to the fact that the priority number one is winning. And all sins will be forgiven, but the moment you're not winning, you will pay for all those sins. Now, I don't know that Ed Orgeron's paying for all those sins when he's getting a $17 million check on his way out the door. Although I talked with Gus Kettengill, who does sports talk down in New Orleans earlier in the week, and he said word in New Orleans is that the $17 million is hush money so that Ed Orgeron doesn't spill the beans on everything that's been going on in that athletic department. So take that for what it's worth. But, I mean, I think it does speak to the pedestal we place football, the demand we put on winning, and the rewards we will give it. We will accept almost any behavior, no matter how deplorable, no matter how much society has evolved and recognized the mistakes of its way. You're not required to evolve and get up to speed with what's going on in society if you're a successful football coach. And the people around you, even the media, I'm watching, Eli Drinkwitz kind of struggle with, I think, what are some legitimate questions. He had one last year where he asked something about he was asked something about a wide receiver. And he's like, they asked a wide receiver about, hey, playing time, this or that. And he chastised the guy for asking the wide receiver, like, what are you doing with that? Chris Kleiman, well, I'm like, you won't answer it. So I'm going to the guy who, was involved. That's the natural progression of reporting. It's how you do things. But somehow Eli Drinkwitz was offended that somebody would ask a question of one of his players. Chris Kleiman, the head coach of the K-State Wildcats today, said, listen, we've lost 3 games in a row. We could have won all 3 of them. We didn't. We have to play better, clearly. But he said, young people, 19, 20-year-old kids, like, they're not equipped to handle this kind of adversity and this kind of negativity, and all the negativity around them brings them down. I need your help, guys. I need you to be more positive. He literally said this at a press conference. And let me tell you something, probably 80% of the room was like, oh, okay, coach, I got it, right? Because part of the room are the play-by-play guys, the pregame guys that are on the university payroll. There's some rah-rah, fanboy sites. I will say Tim Fitzgerald from Go Power Cat does a fantastic job, and trust me, he's not going to be influenced by Chris Kleiman saying, hey, be positive. But, like, that mindset came from Chris Kleiman, who's certainly not Nick Saban. He was at one point the Nick Saban of 1AA football at North Dakota State. And I think he got treated that way. And I think that's part of, he still thinks, like, well, no, wait a minute. Everybody has to be on board. Like, you've got to sing our praises. Don't be bringing the team down. We're all in this together. And that's not the reality, but that is their reality. And so all those little things of, like, being reinforced that you can tell the media how to do their job and that you need to celebrate us. That behavior has been reinforced throughout his career as the proper behavior. And he thinks he's going to dictate to other people how they're going to do their jobs.
Which, by the way, is hilarious. I will accept to a certain point that from a coach, right? And this could be promoters. I mean, obviously I dealt with Dana White for a long time. I will accept, your business better than I do. You know football or basketball better than I do. But when you then come back and you're going to tell me how to do my job, now you've gone overboard. And I'm not accepting that. And let me tell you, there's a lot there on the, hey, kids get down more easily. You need to be positive. Do we? Maybe there's a dose of reality that they haven't gotten to this point. All you guys do, many of you, is complain about kids these days. You know who doesn't complain about kids these days? Me. Right? Me. And I don't complain about media people, young media people. You know what? Kids these days, in many ways, blow us away. Blow us away. They deal with so much more, and they're so much more mature than we are. Just because you found a little crew of kids that were coddled doesn't mean they've all been coddled, and doesn't mean that they can't deal with adversity. So that stuff drives me nuts. That, they need to be, you got to be careful. No, stop. Kids are tough. we, the older people, are the ones who allow for this. Oh, be careful. They're not as tough as they used to be. Cut it out.
Well, kids that have not had everything given to them, and let me be clear, a college football player that spends 3 hours a day in the gym and running and working out and training and going to camps and running routes and doing all those things. I'm not saying it comes without work, right? That they
Mhm.
just roll out of bed and go get it done. They work, so that part of the equation hasn't been given to them. But we do know that they'll give you a tutor to help you get your classwork done. They'll give you another tutor and another and all kinds of study time. And somebody will come make sure you get to class on time, and they'll come check to make sure that you're there. And they will give you a schedule for your day that basically covers everything you've got to do all day long. You're not allowed to grow and mature as an individual. So any of the behavior and inability to handle any kind of negativity or any kind of adversity that comes your way is because you've never allowed the star athlete to deal with any adversity.
Now, here's the great thing, to go back to where we started. The people who are so often coaches are so often saying kids these days. You guys pointing your finger at kids these days in this generation, you are as out of control and undisciplined and disloyal as any era of coaches we've ever seen. You're the ones lecturing kids. And that's why we see stuff like Gruden fester over the course of 30 years, right? And I saw Chuck post, Gruden got railroaded. I think this is a good discussion. I think the Raiders got railroaded. Gruden did not get railroaded. Gruden gave all the material that people needed to show at least part of his personality that is untenable as a leader, as a CEO. If you email out, and here's the thing, if you practice what he was preaching, then forget about it. You can't be a leader. But if you cover just about every gender, minority, and sexual preference that you're not comfortable with and smash them, you didn't get railroaded. He
No.
gave people the material. And if you're leading a program, a company, in this case, he's got a boss. There's a boss beyond the boss, the NFL. You're selling a product. Gruden did not get railroaded. Now, do I know a lot of people who speak like Gruden? Yes, absolutely. Are they going to get fired from their jobs? No, because they don't run a company. They're not at that level. But Gruden gave all the material. I don't feel bad for John Gruden, but what John Gruden got caught up in is being John Gruden, being football guy, being power guy, trying to command a room and, trying to tell jokes. And, I think he probably doesn't like female referees or gays or, this person being in football who shouldn't be there, and Kaepernick and the kneeling and all that. Like, dude, who are you playing to? Because that's not, society is changing, man. Morph, cut that crap out.
Yeah, it is. And I think, it's moments like these where these individuals are exposed that shows that society, at least when you lose, will not accept your behavior. I mean, it's as simple as that. And Ed Orgeron is a guy who clearly, if you've read the stories about it, is a guy that's life quickly spiraled out of
Yep.
control. He had success that he's never had. He actually had to deal with adversity in his life. He's kind of unique in the sense that he had wanted the USC job, right? Had it as an interim, didn't get it. He wanted the LSU job, was the interim, wasn't going to get it because they were chasing Tom Herman and forget who the other big name was that they were after that they really wanted to give the job to. Jimbo Fisher, I think. They were chasing those two. He wasn't going to get it. Both of them turned him down. That's how he ended up getting the job.
Right.
He was fired at Ole Miss. He couldn't make it work at Ole Miss. I think he was 10-21 or something along those lines at Ole Miss as the head coach at Ole Miss. He's a guy that had fought through adversity throughout his career. And then the moment he had success, he divorced his wife of 20 plus years, who by all accounts put him on the straight and narrow and got his life back together, immediately divorced her, chased every woman in town, including a pregnant woman who was the wife of a high-ranking LSU board member.
Yep.
And
She told, he made a run at her. She
Yep.
told him, I'm pregnant and I'm whatever, married, or I have a boyfriend. And he was like, what does that matter? Like, bro, you shot your shot. Stop being hyper aggressive.
Right.
I mean, I was actually, I want to get one of these guys on. I was like kind of embarrassed of the ESPN national guys tonight. I was driving back home to do the podcast after the coaches show I do. And in some ways, they were defending Ed Orgeron. And I'm like, guys, you got to read the story. I mean, there was such a rift at the school. This is not, hey, what have you done for me lately? The national championship doesn't matter 21 months ago. It was all the stuff that happened since. He completely lost control. I never thought he was a head coach. I thought him getting the USC job would have been laughable. He's a rah-rah guy. He's a closer. He's a recruiter. He's a character in the program. In the Power Five, the guy's worth $700,000 to $1 million, which is crazy, but that's what he's worth. But he's not a leader of a program because he's a bit of a wackadoo. And then some of the stuff you heard, like, give him credit because he, I think, is the guy in the end who plucked Joe Brady. That was brilliant. He's the guy who got Joe Burrow, a generational quarterback. Now, once he did that, they moved on. Then he starts hiring guys like Bo Pelini, who's about as low character as you can get. It sounded like months into the Bo Pelini reign on defense, they weren't even talking to each other. He brought in another coordinator who was a nightmare. I think that after that first year after Brady, they had to get rid of 3 assistants. The school had to pay out $7 million to get rid of those guys. Apparently, he's prone to fits of anger. There was something going on where in one of the stories where they were talking about, the hype video didn't go well, and he's like smashing a chair against the wall, which is like Bobby Knight-esque, like intimidating women. Like you said, he was trying to, run roughshod over the town, trying to take advantage of his newfound fame. Like he just lost control. And again, this goes back to the genesis of the whole conversation. It's power guy, it's football guy. I mean, believe me, folks, we know radio hosts who, once they got to a certain level, drug addicts, drinkers, womanizers. I mean, it's just when you get power, some people can handle it and some people can't.
Yeah, and it's as simple as that. And he just couldn't, he had everything he wanted. This is his dream job. He had it and he had success. I'll push back a little bit on the idea that he's not a head coach. He's not the best head coach. He clearly is like if he could handle his own, demons, for lack of a better term, his own excesses, his own wants. Could he have been a head coach? Like, could he be 9-3 on a semi-regular basis at LSU? I think he could. Is that good enough for LSU? It's not, right? And I think it speaks to the insane nature of, Gene Chizik wins a national championship at Auburn. 2 years later, he's out. Gus Malzahn plays for a national title at Auburn. 4 or 5 years later, he's out. A couple years later, after Ed Orgeron wins the title, less than 2 years later, he's out. I mean, they demand winning. It's an impossible standard to live up to. I do wonder a little bit. I mean, like LSU, you look at it, you're like, is that a place you want to work? Oklahoma's a great spot, right? Like, great job. 3 different guys have won a national championship at LSU since Oklahoma won a national championship. Bob Stoops won his national title in 2000. Nick Saban won one in 2003. Les Miles won his in whatever year it was, 8 or 9 or 10, somewhere in that range. And then 2 years ago, Ed Orgeron did. And so I think it does speak to, like, number one is firing a guy. Oh, my God, no one will come work there. Well, 3 guys that could win a national title did. And each of them had their reasons, like other than Nick Saban, who clearly is backed his up by, okay, the guy just knows how to build national championships. Les Miles, like the only guy to win a national championship with 2 losses in a long, long time. But he did play for another national title. I mean, he could coach then. He's completely lost it now. I can tell you from having covered him in Lawrence, Kansas. But he backed it up. I mean, he had a high-level program there at LSU. And Ed Orgeron, and I think this it speaks to the difficulties of being a head coach beyond just, like, you don't even have to be that good a guy if you're winning. Just don't be a complete a-hole, right? As long as you're not an a-hole, they'll keep you around. But like the success tax is prohibitive. And when you win and Joe Brady gets snatched back up by the NFL back to Carolina, you've got to be able to find the next top shelf offensive mind. When you get the recruit that's, beaten out, even though he may be the second or third best quarterback in college football, but he's beaten out at Ohio State and he transfers in, find the next transfer or find the next high school kid. He hasn't been able to do that. When you lose Dave Aranda to Baylor as your defensive coordinator, which to his credit, he found him. You've got to find the next one. And I think that's what Saban can always fill in the gaps wherever he hasn't found the best guy or he finds the best guy for it. And that's the hard part to me is it's one thing to win a national title when you got the band, when you got the crew that you know can do it. It's another thing to keep winning when everybody comes and starts taking your guys from you. Because I have a couple of theories. One, you're no longer on the ground, boots on the ground out there and at the high school being like, God, I keep running into this guy. Like, this guy is all over. This guy recruits as well as I do. Everywhere I go, he's there. And I hear his name, and kids are talking about, well, Coach so-and-so over there. Okay, he's the DB coach there, but I'm going to make him, the recruiting coordinator and DB coach. I'll get him, right? I run into this guy all the time. He can really recruit. I'm going to make him. He's the linebacker coach there. He's going to be my defensive coordinator. And when you scheme up and you go against a guy and you're a defensive coach and you see this offensive coordinator, that, man, he just smoked us. God, he knew what I was doing here. He knew what I was doing there. I'm going to go get that guy, right? Or he's the passing game coordinator. You make him the offensive coordinator. When you're down in the trenches, you know who can fight trench warfare. When you go up into the big office and you're no longer out there and you're closing from the office, you lose that ability to connect with everybody on the ground floor. So can you find the people around you and find the information to continue to know and be able to bring in quality assistant coaches? That's the trick, and very few can do it. Nick Saban's has proven to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I know lately he's benefited from his own success. That guys line up to go, be those, whatever it is, those video assistants or whatever the hell they are.
Right. Yeah.
He's always got experienced guys that he can just be like, okay, I lost Lane Kiffin. Well, Steve Sarkisian, you're the guy. Okay, I lost Steve Sarkisian. Well, Bill O'Brien, you're the guy now. I lost Brian Gable before Lane Kiffin. Okay, now it's Lane Kiffin. All these guys, to his credit, he identifies the talent. The talent now lines up around him. The machine, the beast feeds itself. But early on, he was finding Kirby Smart, and he was finding guys that could flat out coach.
There's also we don't have to sit here and pat Nick Saban on the back, but he's grown as a coach over the years.
Finally, would somebody give this man some credit?
I know, right? But to be able to bring in all those guys you just mentioned, guys who have resumes and coexist with them, that is next level as a manager. And that was, Orgeron apparently couldn't, he just was like, F this, the relationship's over. Like a month in, they're not talking to each other. That does happen. It's not that unusual that the head coach and coordinators don't get along. That's when things are really unraveling. It does happen. This is an ego-driven thing. Everyone's got different philosophies. It's just that Saban is a master. So if I'm an AD, I'll ask you, if you're an AD at a group of 5, right? And group of 5 college football program, and you want to win a college football, you just haven't nailed it, right? 3 years from now. Hey, you know what? Let's make a run. We got $1 million, $1.5 million for a head coach. Let's make a run at John Gruden, and let's make a run at Orgeron. Who would you want?
If you're going to make a run at one of them?
If you could hire one of them, if they're interested, who would you want?
Okay, so first of all, let me say there's a really good book out there. It's an old one called Meat Market. And it basically is a behind-the-scenes look at one season with Ed Orgeron and his staff at Ole Miss. Hugh Freeze is on his staff. There's another name that's had some fun, right?
Can you imagine those two?
Yeah. I think there is probably a lot that wasn't put in the book.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm sure Ed Orgeron had, some approval on it. But go check that out. So I just looked it up because I couldn't remember the name of the book. But if you really want to know kind of what it's like being around Ed Orgeron, go check it out.
Who's going to learn their lesson the best, and who will be able to work with other people and tone it down enough? Because my fear when people talk about, you give a group of 5 job to one of these guys, like if they weren't under control in a big time situation, imagine what they're going to do in a small place where they're beyond the king.
Can you even hire John Gruden? Maybe Liberty or some religious institution that can say, hey, sinners, we give them a second chance because, Hugh Freeze is at Liberty, right? And he's accused of all kinds of recruiting violations. But can you have racist and homophobic and misogynistic, comments linked back to you and actually get hired?
Is there a difference between comments and action?
Yes,
Do we know?
sure.
Do we know that John Gruden was a sexist, was a racist? Again, did he practice what he preached? There are a lot of players, African American players, who stood up and they're like, "Hey, Gruden was fine with me," and I've we've talked to enough people behind the scenes who are like, "Hey, John Gruden may say those things, but in the end, all he cares about is winning." Now, it sounded like he was strong enough on the or against the protest that he wouldn't have dealt with Kaepernick, right? But beyond that, do you practice what you preach? I don't know. I mean, Orgeron has been fired for actions.
Right. He's been fired again, I'll say, for losing. Like John Gruden, what's amazing about Gruden and what speaks to how much what he did is now shunned by society is that he was 3-2. And Curtis looked up, I don't know if guys fired in the first 5 or 6 weeks. He's the only one that's ever been fired that early that had a winning record. So that tells you, like, for the most part, don't ask, don't tell. The guy's winning. I don't want to know what his emails say. Right? That's how the system usually works. I don't want to know what his emails say. I don't want to know what he's doing. I don't want to know who he's dating. Like, don't ask, don't tell. We're winning. Just, I don't want any information on the guy. Just let him keep winning. I think Ed Orgeron would be the guy, right? Because I think he's got an easier. I think him sitting at a press conference saying, "Look, I'm not. I've gotten married. I've settled down. I recognize the problems in my life. I understand." Yeah, I can hear that kind of press conference, that announcement press conference, much more than I can hear John Gruden. John Gruden is going to get hit with, "You're a racist." The owner is going to be hit with, "Why are you hiring a racist?" And I think there's something too. I think John Gruden, I think he's a racist? Do I think he hates, black people? No, I think he just got away with, it was a, you know, when I was a kid, like racial jokes were like funny and everyone was just supposed to roll with the punches. Right. And society finally said, no, when you laugh at those jokes, you're, accepting them and you're telling the person you're supporting the ideology that comes behind it. So I think Gruden, is secretly a member of the KKK? I don't. But I think he's a guy from a different time that's never been forced to correct his behavior because he's always been just given the key to the city because he could coach football and then because he could talk about football. So he never evolved. As society evolved, he didn't have to. He could keep doing it his way and tell everybody my way is the right way and stick it until he finally got exposed.
And you don't think he will
get another shot?
Evolve.
Yeah, I think he will. I mean, I think if given an opportunity, yes, I think he would evolve quickly. I think he would want to prove that he's not what he was made out to be. I think he would want to prove that he can coach. I'm sure he feels like there's unfinished business and he can still be successful. So what if it's at a college, like if he goes back to Tampa and coaches at South Florida or something?
Right.
Like if I were to give you a scenario where he'd coach South Florida, I think something, UCF, someplace back in his old neighborhood where he there's probably plenty of people that support the things he said and would champion him, and other people that'd be like, well, we're not winning, let's take a shot. And I want to believe that he's a changed man because I want to win. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and let's go.
I mean, there are very few coaches who never got another shot. And it's funny, you can name some of them who didn't, and even they got high school jobs. Like Dave Bliss was coaching high school in Las Vegas.
How?
Like everyone. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, how he did. It was a faith-based school, and they're like, second chances, man. We're all about giving second chances. And they were also all about, we want to win a little bit. And,
Yeah.
I know.
Not getting it. Not getting it. Like, it's staggering. Recruiting violations, okay. You stand watch and try to cover up a murder on your basketball team. I don't know how the man ever worked again. Like, I'm not saying he should have been, jailed for life, but I wouldn't give him a job. Yeah. Right? The whole freedom of speech thing. Oh, we don't have freedom of speech. And like, no, you do. We're not putting you in jail and we're not deporting you.
Right.
Therefore, you can say what you are, but I don't have to hire you.
Right. You're not free from consequences. And if the
Exactly.
lion's share of employers say, I don't want to be associated with this person, then you're out.
Exactly.
Okay. How about the
By the way,
Raiders? Yes.
I want to ask you, what do you think of the LSU job? I mean, I just mentioned 3 guys have won a national championship there.
Yeah.
Since Oklahoma won a national championship.
I mean, in a way, this will sound strange. Like it's almost one of those jobs. I'm going to say stepping stone, but I don't mean it that way. Like you go in, you make a run at it for 4 or 5 years. If you can last that long, if you don't win, you probably can get a job somewhere else. And now, I mean, if I were a coach, the way I'd look at it is like, hey, to the agent, just make sure you get me a $15 million buyout. Like it might not work out. I'm confident. I think I can do a good job, but make sure I get 15 mil after the end of 3 or 4 years. But like conventional thinking, it's funny. This is what the ESPN national guys were talking about. And unfortunately, it's a guy based in Texas, Fitzsimmons. And I don't know if you've had him on the show before. And Freddie Coleman, who's really not a college guy because he's in Connecticut, around Bristol, Connecticut. And they were talking about how good the LSU job is as compared to USC job. And I just look at things differently in terms of upward mobility. To me, coach, you see what the SEC is. First of all, there's a gorilla on the block, a bully on the block. He's not going away for like 4 or 5 years. So everything is measured against Saban, which is ridiculous. It just is. So the LSU job like has everything, has the passion, but there's so little patience at LSU and Auburn and Arkansas. And I mean, Dan Mullen is on the hot seat. Like JFC, like what are we serious? and I understand standards are high at USC. And if you're only winning 7 games a year, 3 years in, it's probably not going to do well. But you're in a freaking sweet recruiting spot. It's a great place to live. And the Pac-12 is not the SEC. The upward mobility is awesome. Like you can win the Pac-12 at a high level and potentially compete for national championships there. LSU, you're fighting so many different people and the standards are so high. Am I crazy?
Yes, it's crazy. Dan Mullen's record at Florida, 10-3, 11-2, 8-4. Right now he's 4-3.
I mean,
2-3 in the league.
Yeah.
He's gone to the Peach, Orange, and Cotton Bowls. He won the Peach, won the Orange, and lost the Cotton. So there is an element of diminishing returns. Hey, he's getting into his guys, and it's getting worse. Like he was better with the Muschamp guys than he is with his own guys. I'm with you. Last year, it was just an odd year. I mean, he played for the conference championship last year.
Yes, and he pushed Alabama further than 99% of the country thought he was going to. And the other. Well, first of all,
and by the way, I want to point out he was 69-46 at Mississippi State.
Yep. And when are they going to win again, right? Because the next guy the freaking Pirate, get out of here, right? You're already seeing how he's going to struggle. Shouldn't this be a feather in the cap as well? How many coaches in the SEC were being courted by at least a couple of teams in the NFL? If football people at the highest level were like, yeah, you know what, Dan Mullen he's probably a candidate to coach at the next level. Who else?
If he's on the hot seat, I wonder if people aren't saying we're not sure that the recruiting's on the up and up. Right? Like I always wonder, in-house, if somebody said, hey, there's some academic questions here. Right? Like, do we have a tutor, a rogue tutor? Is there another shoe about to drop? Like I'm going to tell you, who was the guy at Tennessee before Heupel?
Butch Jones?
No, in between Jones and Heupel, there was a guy who had come, I think, from Georgia or maybe Alabama.
That was the former Alabama DC.
Yeah. And they were putting together a great recruiting class. And I asked some of the guys that are recruiting guys off the air. So, hey, what's going on there? They're like,
well, they got caught. They also got caught too. There were reports of
they did get caught, but I'm saying 6-9 months before they got caught. Cause I remember having, I don't remember who it was, somebody from the Cover 3 podcast on, one of the CBS guys. Cause I like those guys and I like that show. And I was like, hey, what's going on at Tennessee? Like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, word I'm hearing is that like, there's a lot of illegal, against the rules stuff going on that they're paying guys. Oh, I'm not going there. I'm not about to do anything. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not reporting it. I'm asking you there. I'm being told it. And I was being told it by people that are in the business of tracking and reporting on the recruiting. And they're like, listen, what's going on at Tennessee is not real. Everybody in the industry knew it 6 months before they could prove it, and they busted him. Right? So Jeremy Pruitt, thank you. So my point is, like, I always wonder when a guy, Dan Mullen's having his first real hiccup, let's be honest, and they're ready to run him out. Like, are they looking around and they've got academic questions or they've got recruiting questions? They've got NCAA issues looming around the corner, and they know it because before it's proven, before it hits the street with the actual details and the public, and everything's made public, got people in the know. Now, I have not. Now, I haven't asked specifically about Dan Mullen, but I have not heard anything like that. I have heard some tales of some interesting things back in the day at Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
So, has that made its way to Florida? And now Florida's like, listen, we got to dodge this bullet. He's also, let's be honest, he's a pain in the ass.
He's crazy. Right? Like, last year, his dealings with COVID were a little wacky.
That was wacky. He got into a pissing match, at the end of the first half with Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri, and he's a loose cannon, and that's okay when you're winning national championships. Like I said, Ed Orgeron's a colorful, fun guy when he's winning the national championship. Less than 2 years later, he's a Titanic pain in the ass when he ain't winning, and he's got to go. You're eccentric and colorful if you do things that are out of the norm and maybe even offensive or obtrusive when you're winning. But when you're losing, public enemy number one. And all those things will be brought to bear on you. Listen, Mark Mangino was fat the entire time he coached the Kansas Jayhawks, and they didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like it. The athletic director who inherited Mark Mangino didn't like it, but he was winning at a place that never wins. And the first losing season he had, which by the way was 5-7, they ran him out, and people came out of the woodwork. Oh, he makes the kids do bear crawls on a hot field, and he yelled at the refs at his kid's high school football game. And, things that had never been said just were unloaded on like he was the worst person on earth because it was time they decided to get him out. And by the way, Kansas has paid the price. If Lance Leipold doesn't get it turned around, I'm going to start calling it the ghost of Mark Mangino. That he is haunting Kansas football. Because they're not just struggling or not so good. They're god awful and have been for years. I think Leipold's going to turn it around.
All right, so give me your take on the whole Raiders got railroaded by the NFL and that the NFL completed its first step in getting Mark Davis out of the league. They effed him on his coach and maybe screwed up a season, but ultimately what they really want is Mark out and basically to get back at Al Davis for being a giant pain in the ass all those years.
I don't think there's any. I don't think anyone was around Al Davis. Not enough guys were around Al Davis to hold a grudge.
What about dads of owners now?
Right. So, Lamar Hunt actually always liked Al Davis. They had a great rivalry.
Right.
Clark Hunt, who heads up is the main guy of the family. The 5 kids own the team, but Clark is the lead guy. Is kind of a hard guy to read. He's very good at not saying much. He's got the coach speak down, and he stays out of the way of his coach and GM and lets them be the face of the organization, which is smart. He's a real good owner from that standpoint, and in a lot of other standpoints. But I don't think he has a grudge. If you're not going to run Dan Snyder out right now. And I asked Bob Glauber from New York Newsday, who's my NFL insider on the program on my radio show. I asked him, I said, listen, is the goal to get rid of, Dan Snyder? Is that what they're working towards? And I asked Adam Schefter this as well.
Did he answer?
He said,
did he want to give an answer or did he hold back?
He is quite reserved. He is a reporter at heart. Let me say that.
Yeah, we know that.
But he
did he take your question and run it by someone else before he answered it?
I asked him about that.
You did?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What'd he say?
He said, look, he said it was done tongue in cheek. And it was at a time during the collective bargaining agreement, and I wanted to make sure all my facts were straight. He said, did I just put the story in front of him and say, edit it? I did. He said, I meant it facetiously. I meant basically fact check this and tell me if I've gotten anything wrong. So he just showed him what was the finished piece. He said, was I allowing him to editorially change the story? No. But if I had 51% in my story and it was really 49%, I wanted him to point out any mistakes I'd made on the details of the factuality of it. And I do believe that. Like, do I think it was smart to put that in an email? No, let this be a lesson to all of us. Obviously, using homophobic slurs and racist overtones and misogynistic things, don't put it in emails. Don't put it on videos. Don't put it on social media. I mean, that should be right. But even like when you put it in print in today's litigious society, you can't, you've got to assume that somebody else is going to see whatever email you're sending.
Text.
And so don't put anything, if there's anything that you think could be, even though you don't mean it that way, and most people would say there's nothing wrong with what you're saying, but if it could be perceived wrong, don't put it in writing. Don't put it on a recording. Say it only in person.
And even
then, if you're in the state of Kansas, which is a one-person knowledge recording state,
right,
you might be recorded then, and it can be used against you in any kind of court proceedings.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
so
I know you're very familiar with this in your calls to DirecTV.
I am indeed. Yes.
I know you are. I know you are.
And
so
my reflects it.
You don't believe Adam Schefter ever did that in other situations, like maybe in developing a relationship with the Broncos and sending stories to, say, like Mike Shanahan? Because I've heard that.
I believe, I don't know. Let me say that first and foremost. I don't know the man's entire catalog of work and everything he's done and how he's done things behind the scenes. I believe he is an information broker.
Yep.
I'm thinking more in terms, Brady, when I say that, like, if you think your boss is a jackass, don't put it in an email, even if it's in your own email, like not your company email, your personal email.
Yeah.
If you want to call your boss a jackass, then say it in, hey, listen, call me later. I'll tell you about whatever, right? Like, that's what I'm getting at.
What if you just don't care? Because there's no doubt in my mind that IT people can see every single email you send. So
Sure.
if you write it about the IT person, they're going to say it, or they're going to see it.
I think just live by the golden rule. Okay.
There you
go. Do unto others as you'd have done to you, and you won't have any problems.
Yeah. By the way, I like this one. Mob rules: talk only outside while eating peanuts, or as we saw in Casino,
put your hand up here.
That or get in and out of 17 cars in 15 different garages, and it might take you 45 minutes to actually have the conversation, but that's how you can be careful. No one will know what you're talking about if you're in your fourth car in a garage with the music blaring. So
right.
Listen to Adam Schefter. Get your shit together.
Yeah. So I mean, do I think Schefter? I mean, I think he traffics in information.
Yep.
And so, like, listen, I've heard different guys say, hey, like I had one reporter tell me he was told by a general manager, hey, do you play the game?
Yeah.
And the guy's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, give me something about another team and I'll give you something.
Right.
It's like, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? So, well, something that, can help me out. Team, like on draft time, like, hey, they really like this guy. Give me that, and then I'll give you some information. Right. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't do that. When I say I'm not going to tell anyone, I'm not going to tell anyone. And then he proceeded to tell me who in the game does do that. He goes, here are the guys that operate that way.
Right. I'll kind of do this.
Yeah.
Although you can hear me, so this isn't working. What just happened? I don't know. That's the Andy Reid thing, right? With the big plastic play sheet, you cover your mouth.
Exactly.
I got you off the path there. And by the way, I think they all have different methods. The top insiders in all sports, clearly Woj and like Shams in the NBA have their methods. They have passing. Glazer probably is a different type than Schefter, just like Rappaport might be different. So.
They'll have their styles. There's no doubt. Yeah. But what were we? Where did you took me towards?
Well, you were talking about Schefter and the Raiders, and he was starting to go down the path of is the league? Are there people in the league who are against the Raiders?
Yeah. So I said, like, listen, is like, isn't the league like? Do they want to get rid of Dan Snyder? He said they're not. I said, are they going to make Dan Snyder sell? Are they going to give him the Donald Sterling treatment? And he said, no. He said they're not going to try to get rid of any of their, owners. It's not a move that they're going to make. And I'm like, well, I wonder if John Gruden's emails had been from Dan Snyder. I think it might be different. Right? Maybe not. Maybe the NFL is much more tolerant of racism and misogyny and all that. Certainly looks like that right now. Yeah. The culture of football, much more so than basketball. Right? And maybe as simple as that they're much more accepting of that kind of behavior than the NBA, who said no. But he said, no, they're not going to force Dan Snyder out. So to your point about getting at the Raiders or getting at Mark Davis, I don't think they're going to try and force Mark Davis out. No, I don't. I think they're
I don't think
club. And when you're in the club, you're in the club.
Yeah.
And they don't want to force anyone out because they know they could be next. I mean, half of them are probably just as bad a jackass.
Right.
And they know, well, wait a minute, if my crap gets out there, then they'll be able to force me out. So no, I'm not going to help set the precedent that any one of us can be taken out at any time.
Well, I like what you said, 20 minutes ago about Orgeron. That could be hush money, because if Ed wants to talk about the athletic department and start spilling the beans on the basketball program and Will Wade, look out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And by the way, all of these sexual assault and like rape allegation issues all over the school, going back to the Miles era and apparently continuing into this era. So
brutal. And I think that's what they're worried about, is that Ed Orgeron has more knowledge about that stuff too. And that if they try to fight him for the money, then all that's going to become public.
Yep. Yeah. Every time I see one of these guys get in trouble, I'm like, my God, Jerry Jones has lived a life. Let's tell those tales.
I think, to think that they want to get rid of Mark Davis, I think you need to settle down on how important the Raiders are.
Well, I actually, the way I look at Mark Davis is that he's not part of the club. That they kind of look at him as an outsider, that he's not old money, as I've been putting it on the air. He's not, he's not robber baron money. A lot of these families go back 4 and 5 generations.
No, he's football money. He's a coach who got into the ownership game. Some people would say screwed his partners into getting total control of the team.
Right.
I've read some books that would assert that. But no, he's not a guy. He's different in the sense that he didn't make his money, and he's not some successful tycoon from some other industry. But there's plenty of trust fund babies.
Well,
in that room too.
I was gonna say Davis, and this is kind of a local angle for us here in Vegas. Mark Davis is more like a Jimmy Buss type. Now, as it turns out, Jeannie's kind of the brains of the kids, and Jeannie went cutthroat, and she's like, "You're all out. You're all part of the team, but you ain't running the squad anymore," because that was a disaster. But from what we hear about Mark, he didn't have to be super responsible, through his 40s, and kind of got to live the rich kid life. So, and now he owns the team, and there is no Jeannie, there is no other Davis to save him and be the responsible Davis kid.
But I mean, how many of them are second generation owners? Clark Hunt, Bidwell. Is that it? I mean, there's got to be more than that. Rooney's are like third or fourth.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking families like the Rooneys and the Maras, who actually are linked together with some of the kids. I was thinking back, are they like this mother? I'll never forget Al Davis busting our chops, and I'm going to get their kid. Because I will tell you, like you said, people don't remember. I had a long conversation. I was in New Orleans last week, so I got to hang around my mom and my father. But my mom's kind of the battle axe, and we started talking about like her friends and her and family stuff. And I was like, man, she doesn't forget anything. And I'm like, ooh, man, I don't forget anything. Like some of that stuff. If your parents tell you stories about someone who burned them, and then you're around their kids, you're like, okay, all right. Like, I'm not going to forget that. So I wonder how long, the Al Davis, damn it, Al, like how long that lasts for, if it just kind of dissipates at some point.
Yeah, I think it has, because I think there's been enough. Like, if they should be pissed at anybody, they should be pissed at the Rams owner, because he's the one that, like, they had a plan for Los Angeles, and it dragged on for a decade, and he finally said, "Screw this, I'm doing this."
Yep.
So
well, and that's the difference. To me, that's the difference. I don't think Mark Davis intimidates them. For some reason, Dan Snyder, but especially Stan Kroenke, intimidate the F out of the rest of it. Like they're like, we don't want to mess with these guys because it's gonna get so litigious that things will get dragged out. And by the way, now it's come back on them because of the Kroenke stuff in St. Louis. Like some of those emails are getting out, that there was a lot of collaboration between owners and Kroenke, and the people handling the St. Louis case are kind of brilliant, like playing the NFL against itself.
Yeah, and Clark Hunt's one of those individuals that they're subpoenaing his financial records to see if he benefited from the Rams. Yep. Because, which to me is, this is a lawsuit with Kroenke. And how do you put pressure on a guy? You threaten to expose things he doesn't want out there, or you piss off his business partners into pressuring him. And I think this is an attempt to get Kroenke to settle with St. Louis and write the check. Right? Like that's like, if your goal in a lawsuit is, it's either to write new law or it's to get paid. Right? You can get paid by going all the way to the end and winning the settlement, or you can get paid by settling before it gets to the end. And along the way, you want to put pressure on them in every way possible. So to me, what's going on with that is they're pressuring his business partners, the other owners, to make their lives hell, so that they then go to him like, listen, dude, solve this thing.
Right.
Get rid of it because you're making me look like shit.
The LA plan.
So the LA plan initially was, so the NFL, and so I would look for something potentially to develop on this if they ever get going and serious about NFL Europe, about NFL teams in Europe, getting a team over there. So my understanding was the plan was for a new stadium in LA to be NFL owned, to house the NFL Network studios, which they've done now with this stadium. It would have 2 practice facilities on. It actually would have, 3 or 4 practice facilities on site. I think it was 3. So that it was part of the Europe plan, the greater Europe plan, which another facility like this would be built in New York. Just a practice one with no game stadium would be built in New York. They had a site at one point, as I understand it, and it would house 2 teams full of, for lack of a better term, dorms, but hotel space for 2 teams to stay there. 2 teams practice fields, 2 teams film rooms, 2 teams meeting rooms. LA would have the same thing. It'd be 3 for the 2 teams that would anchor LA. LA was always going to get 2 teams if they were going to get 1. But then for a 3rd team to be staying there. The idea being that if the 49ers went to London, right, you had a London franchise, or if you had 4 teams over there, a division, the 49ers would leave San Francisco, go play the Giants, or let's say the Patriots in Boston, and then would go practice in New York, play the Giants in New York. They'd practice at this facility. They'd take it over as kind of their home space. Then they would go to London, play a game in London, and, play that team. And ideally there'd be a facility that would house a team as well in London. They would then, maybe if there's only one team, in the time there's only one team, when they get done with London, they fly back to New York, practice there, play the Eagles, and then they fly back home to San Francisco and have a bye week. That there would be these 2 satellite venues in New York and in San Francisco, so that when London came over there, or even East Coast teams could go play LA, practice that week, play the 49ers, go home. It was going to be a facility that would be there that could be used by other teams, particularly on the far east or far west side of the league.
Right.
And they would be able to do it. And then it would have all kinds of other uses right beyond that. But so that was their plan. It was to house NFL Network and all those kind of things. And the league was going to own it, and it was going to be expansion teams in Los Angeles. Right? They wanted to sell, because they thought the Los Angeles market they could sell for like maybe as much as $4 or $5 billion each. And they would expand into Los Angeles, and the owners would all make money.
And then Kroenke,
and this was talked about. I heard about this probably at least 10 years ago.
Right.
Or more, maybe more. And Kroenke finally is like, enough talk. I'm going.
Well, then Kroenke screws them because not only does he take one of the slots that can't go to an expansion team, but he also pays for his stadium, which they hate.
Yeah.
Like Stan, we
They
do we
hate
get
it.
we get public money. What are you doing? You
They,
don't
they
pay
hate
for your own stadium.
they hate it, but everybody pays in California. And if the Warriors don't want to pay for their facility, fine, leave, because somebody else will come pay for it to have this market. The financial windfall is so great in an LA or a San Francisco that, it's not in a San Diego, which isn't as big. Hence, the Chargers aren't there anymore. Right. But in LA or San Francisco, the market size and the revenue that's there is so big that it's cost effective. It's why the San Francisco Giants are the one baseball team that paid for their facility. Maybe the Yankees did too. There's certain markets. The Cowboys pay for the bulk of. There's always infrastructure. There's always some help, but the bulk, right? The bulk of the Kansas City renovations were paid for by taxpayers. The bulk of the San Francisco Giants baseball stadium paid for by the Giants. Warriors complex paid for by the Warriors. Now they did suck up a bunch of land around it. They're going to own all the buildings around it and all the, different restaurants and all that's going to all be them. And you're going to be paying same way the Red Sox, like you're actually in Fenway Park's facility, like 2 blocks before you ever get there, because that's part of what they've done is suck up all the land around it. So any store or restaurant around them, you're actually paying the Red Sox. But, the Cowboys paid for themselves, San Francisco Giants, Golden State Warriors, San Francisco 49ers, the LA, California, they ain't going to pay for you. No. And it's still a better financial deal to pay for your own stadium, own it, and then take all the revenue.
All right, good deal. That was a good discussion.
We do what we can, Steve.
We're still mad here, though. We're still going to play the NFL hates the Raiders and the NFL hates Vegas. So we're still going to ride with it. And the NFL hates poor Mark Davis, and Mark Davis is an outsider. He's not one of them. He's not
the
one
us against the world approach is a good one.
It is a good one. Especially for Vegas, because we were disliked by the NFL for so long, and now the pigs are completely into gambling. And now they can't get enough gambling sponsors. So
how amazing is it? It's less than 5 years from them sending spies into Vegas to shut down Super Bowl parties that had their TV was too big.
Well, it's a little longer. It was 2004. It was the 52-inch TV rule, and they threatened to come around and measure the TVs at Super Bowl parties. But yes, it's actually the more recent one. It's less than 5 years from Tony Romo trying to host a fantasy football conference in Las Vegas, and they shut the whole thing down.
Okay.
That was 5 years ago with the golden child, Tony Romo, with fantasy football, which has benefited from immensely. And now they can't get enough sports gambling and run enough of those JB Smooth, Pat Oswalt commercials, which I still don't understand what Caesar's rewards are. I have it, but I don't know what I'm getting. But I'm glad to lose because I'm going to get the rewards, and then I can drink out of a chalice and wear the thing on my head, whatever that is. So it's one of the weirder campaigns I've ever seen. I don't agree. It's a bizarre one. I know. I forgot. I already mentioned this to you off the air, and I'm using the same material.
No. But
no, it's a weird one.
I like the commercials. They're funny.
I think they're funny. I just don't know what the goal is.
I'm not sure. Like what? So I get rewards. Like what are the rewards?
They just keep saying it's his rewards. It's Caesar's rewards. So I don't know.
But you can only use them at Caesar's. Okay, yeah. I got it. But what are the rewards?
Right.
Do I get a Bentley?
Right.
Or do I get $1 off at the buffet at Caesar's in Las Vegas? Like what am I getting?
The way Vegas works now, if you get $1 off of the buffet for like $1,000 lost, that's probably a good deal. So things have changed here. The days of the $3.99 steak and eggs have gone out the window, or the all you can eat $2.99 spaghetti. Bye.
So one of the things I pitch here, right? Like Good Sense, great KC company.
Yeah, I miss them here.
They're fantastic.
Good bread.
Their reward program is 10%. Oh. So if you buy $20 like today, and you just start your rewards card, you now have $2. And so the next time you go and you buy the same order, it's $20. Like I'll use my rewards. Here's my $2. Okay, it's only $18. And then you get $1.80. Right? So like if you save it up, right, like I do, like because I just it's the same whether you cash it every time or you save it up. But when I save it up and I get to enough to where like I buy the whole family, 4 sandwiches for free, it's a great reward. Like I think it's the most underrated reward out there. 10% back to use right there is the best thing ever. Right? I know what the reward is. I don't know what the hell the reward is at Caesars.
I like this from Kirk. I want strip club rewards. If I got a lap dance for every like 1,000 or 2,000 I shuffle through, okay. Alex says
that does that, and would that take them to the top?
Probably. That'd be the difference. Yes. Alex says it's like the crap Indiana riverboats used to give slot players. You get discounts on food and gift shop crap. Probably. I actually, you know what? I've never been part of a players club because I'm not a slot player. And we do stuff at Silver Sevens tomorrow, and I love reading the giveaways. I've always been intrigued by the weekly giveaways because it's stuff I wouldn't buy, like a colander set. I'm like, that'd be kind of cool.
I don't even know what a colander set is.
Like a bunch of strainers for spaghetti. Like 3 new strainers. Like I'm not going to buy it.
Being given away in a casino.
Yeah.
Not at a old ladies bridge club.
Now you're going to make me look up a play for Silver Sevens because I don't have all the giveaways memorized. I see them on the screens. They do send me a cheat sheet, but I'm ADHD, so no, they do a tech giveaway, like they're giving away little speakers and stuff, and
I take that.
43-inch TVs. Like I think that's cool.
I think
if Caesars is giving away a 43-inch TV, I get a 43-inch TV. I'll do that.
Yeah, I'll take that stuff. I'm down with that.
And by the way, I actually those are the sportsbook apps that I use. So I have Caesars in New Jersey and I have William Hill / Caesars here. So let's see the Tuesday gift giveaway at Silver Sevens. October 5th was a beverage dispenser. It looks like a nice way to make some lemonade. October 12th was choose a chip and dip tray or a barbecue tool set. 19th was 2 serving bowls. 26th was
a tool set.
12-piece dining set on October 26th. So if Caesars will match that, then I am in.
Well, I'm looking forward to us getting it legalized. We're headed into another legislative session coming up here shortly.
Oh my God.
I'm hoping we get it in Kansas and Missouri. So I can bet every week.
Yes.
Like we do a thing at 810 where each show, it's a competition amongst the shows. Fiercely competitive.
Yeah.
No, it's not, but
yes, sir.
They're scoring it. And we have to pick the Chiefs game every week against the spread. And then we have to pick a prop. And I'm 2-0. I just take the Mahomes over rushing prop. And this week it was 17.5. Yeah. And in the first quarter, he took off and ran for 17 yards.
Right.
And I don't think he ran again until the fourth quarter. And he ended up with 31.
Nice.
Like, I was like, is that 18, 19? Was that? Am I there? No. And I had to wait until I think it was either the end of the third or the beginning of the fourth. But then he took off and ran. And over 17.5. I had that earlier. Over the Mahomes rushing.
All right. Someday you will be in the good graces of sports gambling. I hope it happens.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
I enjoy it. I enjoy playing every weekend, playing the end game. You got to show a little discipline.
100%. Yeah. You got to bet within your means.
That too. Yes.
So that's an important part of the equation.
Well,
there's nothing wrong with being a $10 or $20 player.
Yeah. That's why on my bet MGM reads, I always read the disclaimer. If you're a problem gambler, here you go. Here's 1-800-GAMBLER. Please get it together.
What do you like? A game?
What do you mean?
A grand? What do you about 1,000?
Am I a grand a game? No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah, 1,000.
Why would I do that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, because you need more Christmas decorations. We're not that far from you putting some lights up on the house.
Oh boy, yeah.
Might already be up. Are they up?
No, I was actually thinking about the fact that I have some Halloween stuff, and it's just time has flown by, and I'm not going to want to putting the Halloween stuff up. So I have a little light that rotates that I can put on the house that has jack-o'-lantern. So I'll probably do that. Actually, you know what's funny? I have a lot of Halloween stuff too. A lot of Halloween stuff, and I'm just not going to get to it.
When I I love Nick. When I retire, I may do something like that. We did for a long time. You could only buy 3-2 beer in Kansas.
Oh, The worst.
3.2% alcohol was like the max. But that's changed now. And then they didn't sell alcohol on Sunday. But yeah, if I retire, I might consider decorating the house for the outside, right? My wife does a great job on the inside.
Right.
For all seasons, St. Patrick's Day, Halloween, Easter, Thanksgiving, all the big ones, whatever you can think of. But I would consider doing that. But otherwise, no. While I have a job, no, I don't have time for Halloween decorations.
We actually did it was really the efforts made by someone else, but we did a couple of really good Halloween parties at the house. To the point where I moved all the furniture out of the main living space and just put it in the garage because I was like, yes, we need room. But we would decorate for that. But but I'm not doing it. So, but for Christmas, I'm gonna shoot for November 10th this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Proud of you.
I'm ready.
Right around the corner.
It is. I know it's very close. There's actually a UNLV basketball game that night, so I better get it done on the 8th or 9th.
Yeah. Tomorrow's the 20th of October, man. So you're 20. You're 3 weeks away from your deadline.
Exactly. You know it, Mark. Griswold Cofield. Yep. I love Christmas. You know that. Let's not do old material. Believe me, I'll do it coming up. So love the holidays. No, I really do. Far from the
holidays, we unpack all the old material.
It's the same old stuff. Yeah, what do you
the hits?
I mean, I'm not that exciting. So you hope there's a new audience. Hopefully, new people are listening. They're like, who's this guy? Christmas. He sounds like a grump the rest of the year. So, and then it all leads to Festivus, Brady's holiday. So Brady's been building a list about Ari for months and months now.
Very nice.
If I only told all the stories to Brady, maybe I'll have to DM some stories to him.
That'd be great.
He could have some real good material.
Yeah, jack it up, man.
Ari would have a coronary live on the air. So I'm gonna run a couple of NFL games by. We could start Festivus tomorrow and do it every day. Oh, you meant start Christmas decorating tomorrow. I'm gonna have all the stuff ready. It's. Look, Brady says I'm so effing ready. He picks up he picks up on some good stuff during the year. Believe me.
I have no doubt.
Because we forget about the day to day, but we have some listeners who really listen closely, and they're good.
I believe you.
Okay. Big spreads in the NFL. I love to tease these up because I believe in the power of the underdog and the teams that everyone says are terrible. Last week that didn't work. I got blistered badly.
Who'd you lose with?
I tried to ride the Texans in the middle of the game. They showed no fight. Like I said, I tried the Browns because I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't care that the quarterback has a torn labrum and a dislocated shoulder. I like the Browns. I think they're going to fight back. The Chargers are a good team, but at the half, I bet the Chargers. Comeback wasn't in the cards, so that didn't work out. So, but I did. But you know what? I did.
I think the SO may have influenced you on that one. No, they're coming back.
You know what? You know what's funny? I did the Westgate show in the morning, and the Chargers had one of those rare games on the East Coast, so they started at 10 o'clock our time. I walked in, and the cursing was at a level I haven't heard in months. It was F this, F that. Because she had already planned. She had tentatively planned a brunch like in the third quarter because she was like, I have a bad feeling about this game. And she had a good read. She was like, I am so glad I went to this brunch because they were terrible today. They sucked.
I mean, isn't like any time a West Coast team's got to go east and play, that early. That's.
Well, the funny thing is the numbers have corrected themselves.
I had Baltimore. You might recall.
I said Baltimore was my best bet on the Westgate show in the morning. So did I bet him? Of course not. But I did have for some reason people got a little froggy. Not people, but the books actually posted the Packers as a dog early on when the Bears took the lead. So I actually got the Packers plus 2.5 in that one. I'm like, I think they'll come back. So that one worked out. So in the end, I broke even on Sunday and won a little bit on Saturday. So nothing big.
Okay.
For craps and giggles, right?
That's right.
All right. I'm just going to concentrate on the big spreads here. 9.5 Green Bay against the football team. Do we believe in the football team and the fight of the football team? You watched the football team last week against.
I did.
You're impressed in the second half.
I don't believe in the fight football team. I think they're a fractured organization that's going in the wrong direction. I mean, they had the Chiefs at 13-10, but it was largely by self-inflicted wounds for the Chiefs. Tyreek Hill let a interception go through his hands, and Patrick Mahomes made what I think is the worst throw of his career. I mean, fumbled the snap and then just tried to throw it, didn't even have a hold of the football the right way, and just basically pushed it up into the air and got picked off. And that's what had football team up 13-10. The Chiefs said, all right, this is ridiculous. And then blew the doors off and held, this is the worst defense in the NFL, held Washington to just 75 yards and no points in the second half. It's a bad team. No, the Heineke, that's fun.
No.
Shits and giggles are over, though.
Yeah.
No quarterback, no play. You play the Packers and stay the hell out of Dodge.
I was very stingy on line value on the Chiefs in the second half. They were posted at -6 in the second half and -120, and then it jumped to -6.5, and I'm like, can't do it.
Oh, the hook scared you?
I can't do it. And then as I watched it, I'm like, didn't matter, nor did the extra 10 cents, moron. Trust in the Chiefs. By the way, you should know, I don't know if you guys have talked about this. I don't know if you guys update division odds every week. You can bet the division every week.
Yes.
I was bragging on the air today. I'm like, got the Chiefs at -105 for the division. And then I look up at the odds today, and they were actually +110. They're +110. Chargers are +125. Raiders are 8. Broncos are 12.
Yeah, but I thought at one point the Chargers have flipped and were the favorite. Right? Last week,
Maybe last week. I didn't check it last week.
Last week, I think the Chargers became the favorites, and the Chiefs went back up to being the favorites this week.
The Chiefs at +105 to win the division is absurd. I'm saying it's a great bet. It is ridiculous value. They should be closer to -150. The Chargers are a solid team. The Chargers are not winning more than 10 games.
Look, getting punked by the Ravens is not the worst thing in the world. Staley gets it. He gets the math. The head coach.
No, I'm not down on them. I'm not. I just think they have certain limitations. I don't think there are 12 or 13.
What is the limit that they have that the Chiefs don't have an equal limit with? Like, that's what I'll say is, like, look, you come at the king, you best not miss, right? Love me some Omar Little and from The Wire. But so, like, I think if you get a shot, my point being, if you get a chance to put the Chiefs down, you better put them down.
Yeah.
And the Chargers, I'm not saying losing to Baltimore, but there's still a game up front, and they need to stay out in front. And the Chiefs have to go to the Titans this week, so the Chargers need to make things happen. My point simply is this, that I do think they've got a coach that gets the math and is going to manage the game well. Right? I think he's a good defensive mind. And I think they've got a tremendous quarterback. So they got a good coach. Chiefs got a good coach. They got a good quarterback. Chiefs got a good quarterback. Those are the two most important things. Like, Chargers defense better? Yes. I mean, you can find other elements that might be better for Kansas City. A good coach and a good quarterback, that's a pretty even matchup. And so I think the odds are kind of where they need to be.
Rams -15 against Detroit. I'm all over the Lions. It's time. They're due.
You've lost your mind, right?
The notion, we talked about this on our local show. The notion here is that McVay may be motivated to completely embarrass Jared Goff. I don't know why you would want to do that. It's kind of mean.
What about McVay says petty, insecure guy that needs self-gratification?
I don't get it. I agree.
I mean, the guy, he's not an insecure prick at the podium.
Yeah.
He doesn't like bristle at questions. He handles everything smoothly. You want to know why? Because, like, he's in shape. He's young for his level of success. He makes a crap ton of money.
Yeah.
And he's got a good team. Like, he's not, he made a trade because he thought it made his team better. And so far he looks really smart. Like, I better show Jared Goff who's boss. Spare me. He did when he traded him. But I still think the Rams are going to kick the crap out of the Lions.
He's got good hair, too. It's always styled.
I think the fact that the Lions hung around in a couple of games has people thinking like they're almost there. They're not almost there. They're not almost there.
Well, I'm not going to listen to
Everybody
you.
likes Dan Campbell. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Everyone loves him some Dan Campbell, and I love a guy who's a good quote.
Yeah.
It doesn't make him a good coach, right? I mean, it doesn't make him a good coach.
6-point teaser. I'm all over Detroit plus 21. And
Are you really? You're joking, right?
And the Texans plus 24.5.
You are joking, right?
I'm going through key numbers. I'm going through 21 and 24 on the Texans. And come on. I'm going through 17 and I'm at 21 with the Lions. This is a cinch.
I guarantee you
another Cofield 6-point teaser winner.
I guarantee you lose. By the way, if you're in a because like was I talking to you about this? I'm in a rather large
you were, yes.
Okay. Suicide Survivor. Pool or what do you call it?
Survivor
pool. This is a week, man, where you get to, if you still got the Cardinals and you have the Rams, which we do. I've got 2 entries and we don't have the Rams. We haven't used the Rams or Cardinals. What a layup. Right?
Remember you said this.
Does that scare you?
Remember you? No, it doesn't scare me now.
Really? Because it does me. Because I think they're absolute layups. Yeah. And that makes me think that one of them is going to be in a dogfight. Listen, I already needed the Vikings 55-yard field goal to beat the Lions to keep one entry alive.
Yeah.
After they gave up the 2-point conversion with 37 seconds. So I've had my mulligan. Right? Like you get like one of those a year. It came kind of early.
I'll give you games I do like that are like legit lines.
Okay. The Colts against the 49ers.
No, this is totally going to play. You know, I like to do this. It's totally going to play against. I think the average hack, especially sports talk radio host. I'm willing to fire on Denver plus 3.5 at Cleveland. Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. I mean,
right?
The Browns are beat to hell.
Yep.
All the money's come in on the Broncos, clearly. Well, at least the spread's driven down. Let's see. 61% of the cash, 60% of the tickets are on the Browns.
And I also agree with this one, Mark. I am intrigued by the Bears. I'm officially a Bears hoe. I really am. You know why? Because I've heard so much from you on Matt Nagy. That's
By the way, welcome to the club.
That's in the back of my head.
I don't like him as much in this situation.
Plus 13. God, that's juicy. Plus 13.
I don't like it. Listen, so here's my dilemma is I do believe Matt Nagy's a much better coach. Like I'll tell you, Jack Del Rio's a much better head coach than people give him credit for. There are a number of guys.
Best Raiders coach outside of Rich Bisaccia of the last 7 years.
I mean, you know, he's the only one to take Derek Carr and the Raiders to the playoffs in the last 20 years.
Had a better 3-year record than Gruden.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, and he took David Garrard and the Jaguars to the playoffs, right? Like I have immense respect for guys who take, lesser than quarterbacks to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an important part of the equation. I think Matt Nagy's done it twice. And the other thing is, like, I don't think Fields is good. I've said that all along. Like, I think the Ohio State system, the Urban Meyer system, makes guys look incredibly good, but I don't think they really read the field. I think there's a lot of skills they're lacking. It doesn't mean they can't overcome it. Alex Smith eventually became a good quarterback, and maybe Justin Fields will be that. But I think the upside is Alex Smith. And so I like the coach, but I think it's now getting so infested with somebody else has got to call the play, somebody else, which to me is window dressing. But this is a tough spot. But I do think the number is like just there is an element of like you just can't bet enough money the other way of the Bears. Like they were in the game last week for like, 2.5 quarters? I don't know. I'm generally on the Bears, but I like it more as like a 3 or 4 point dog.
Here we go. A second teaser. I love teasers. Bears plus 18.5. Patriots -1 against the Jets. That's a
Pass.
winner. That's a winner.
You think that's a winner?
No.
Mark it down. Which end loses, or do both?
You know what? And this is not a homer deal because I cannot be more down on the Jets and less confident with the Jets. I don't think the Patriots are good, man. And I think every week it's a different Patriots team. You have no idea what you're going to get out of the Patriots, which, by the way, some of the, I mean, I know it's their job, but some of the stuff at the Joe Buck, especially at the end of the Cowboys win against the Patriots, dude, pull up your pants, man. I was like, he was so fired up. Like, he must have said, they're a legit Super Bowl contender. He said it like 7 times. I'm like, Joe, relax. All right. They look good right now. They overcame another episode of McCarthy buffoonery twice. He had 4th and 1 and went for freaking 48-yard and 51-yard bombs in terms of field goal attempts. And you can't predict injuries. They've got a quarterback. Is he going to make it to the freaking playoffs? Right? In Dak. Relax with the Cowboys. They beat the Patriots and Mac Jones. Calm down. Calm down. And in the AFC, which is loaded in terms of depth. Calm down.
The one thing I will say is that the Patriots defense, at least early on, against what now appears to be lesser opponents. I mean, Dolphins, Jets, Saints, Bucks, not the Bucks, but Texans, Cowboys. Tell the Cowboys they hadn't given up.
What, by the way, was it Romo and Nance? I could swear to God it was Joe Buck. I thought it was Buck and Aikman. Was it Romo and Nance, really? I think Quinn's screwing me up here. But go ahead, I'll look it up.
But I do think the Pats are playing defense, which is their calling card, which is a reason. I agree with you. Like saying the Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl because they beat the Pats. Pats are an eminently flawed team that is incredibly limited on offense. So, they're doing some things right, but there's a long way, a lot more to go. By the way, I think I said total yards. Let's talk about passing yards, which to me is the more important part of the equation is limiting the passing yards. I may have said total yards. I apologize if I did, but I do think the Pats can play some defense, but yeah, settle down. Beating the Pats is not your ticket to the Super Bowl.
Look, I posted the announcer combo. There you go. I'm correct. Now, I didn't post the game. Here's the actual game. So it looks like Quinn was correct. Okay.
There you go.
Well, I mean, they were going crazy. No, that's 2 weeks ago. What's going on here? No, that's Thursday night. Hold on a second. I think I'm right on this.
I don't think you have any idea, Steve, personally.
Oh, he's right. Yeah, it was Nance and Romo. Wow. I must have had a couple of shots. Oops. Well, anyway, Nance was getting too crazy, so you get my point. Nance, Buck, kind of the same thing. But I appreciate the correct Quinn because I actually would have done that rant on terrestrial and I would have been wrong. So thank you. We test things out here. I stand corrected. Anyway, don't get so fired up about the Cowboys.
That's the moral of the story.
That is the moral of the story. Mistakes are going to happen. Chris Broussard can have a bad day. I can have a bad day. So, by the way, did you see that whole thing with Chris Broussard? He got dragged pretty bad. He was on, I think, one of the Fox FS1 talking head shows, and he was going on and on about how the Bills shouldn't have run the quarterback sneak since Taylor Lewan had gone out earlier in the game on the offensive line. And everyone's like,
wrong team.
Yeah, wrong side. So, he covers basketball. He doesn't know football. Yeah. People have brain farts. So people make mistakes. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Only bet the plus. Yeah. Save that for Festivus. Yes. Please load that up if someone can cut this. But I'm glad Quinn corrected me. All right, sir. What do you got going on the rest of the week? What do you got coming up with the podcast? What's going on?
All right. So the radio show, we're going to be at Robert Brogdon Buick GMC tomorrow. Yeah. Come on out and buy you a GMC Sierra, Steve. Get you a pickup truck. Let's go. Friday.
I can't drive a pickup truck. I would be a terror on the roads.
Friday we will be at the Kansas City barbecue store, which of course owned and operated by Joe's Kansas City Barbecue. All their knowledge, plus sauces and rubs from all over the country, utensils, the grill.
Can I ask a
fuel.
question? Why is it not called the Kansas City Grilling Store? You guys have gotten on me before about calling it a barbecue.
Well, yeah, it's not a barbecue, but like because they have the smokers and everything you need to actually barbecue, they call it the Kansas City Barbecue Store. I don't know.
Okay.
Take it up with them.
I will. I'm going to go there.
But looking forward to that. The holidays right around the corner. As you know, great gift items there. I myself have received many a gift from there. My wife knows to go there.
So good.
One of the cool things is, like, actually, I will say the sauces and rubs from all over the country. Like, they have like the dinosaur barbecue sauce from Syracuse, which is the only place I would eat barbecue in Syracuse, New York. When I was there, it's like a really good barbecue joint. It's the one really good barbecue joint in Syracuse. And so, like, whatever the best of the best all over the country is, they have that. In addition to all the, like I say, grills, and like if you're a competition barbecuer, they even have they have a trailer smoker. So if you're like it's from like the highest level to the beginner. Anyway, we'll be doing that. Did our Red, White, and True podcast tonight, wherever you get your podcast. Look forward if you're a Chiefs fan. Our 2 Deep NFL podcast is on Thursday. We'll stream that live at 9:00 on Thursday. And then that's available wherever you get your podcast as well. And then, of course, Chiefs pregame on Sunday. Curtis and I, Curtis Seabolt, myself, Mark Poe Richter, the living legend.
I like Mark. Yeah, we're going to get him on. We got to get him on.
Oh, great guy.
Yeah, he's good. It's good. A lot of good Chiefs experts I've been hooked up with by you. That's good. I'm very excited.
He's in the Hall of Fame. Like his record is, anyway, one of 13 people to have a 99-yard touchdown reception.
Nice.
Trent Green to Mark Poe Richter, beating Rodney Harrison. He also holds the Chiefs rookie record. And of course, he played in the CFL first. 8 touchdowns in like 20 catches. His rookie year, 20 catches, 8 touchdowns.
Wow.
His career, for like a guy who, and I think actually today's NFL would do a better job with him, and his numbers would be more prolific, because even that Chiefs team ran the ball a lot. But Mark Poe Richter has one of the coolest careers in the history of the game for a guy that only had like 4 or 5 years in the league.
Neato.
Where are you? Silver Sevens?
I actually misspoke. I was thinking today was Wednesday. It's Tuesday. Tomorrow we're at Battleborn Injury Lawyers. So Justin Watkins will take us through the whole Nick Rolovich thing. Freedom. It's worth your job. So we're going to get into that and see if Rolovich is going to get all of his money from Wazoo. Then Thursday we are at Silver Sevens, where they have 77-cent beers during the game. Friday we'll be in Parts Unknown as we try to avoid the unvaccinated. And actually Thursday night I'm doing the sidelines for the UNLV San Jose State game. They're 0-6. They've lost a lot of close games. It'd be nice to see them win the game, but San Jose State, I think, is a pretty good team. So we'll see what happens in that one. I'm not saying I bet either side already. I may have. So that's coming up, and that's what's exciting this week. And then Westgate on Sunday morning with the one, the only Adam Candy, who you have to get on your show to talk sports gambling, because he's a good guest spot, and he can rub it in that you guys don't have legalized gambling in Kansas or Missouri, because that's pretty stupid.
Well, I remember when he joined us once before, like he knew more about what was going on in Kansas and Missouri than I did.
He's on top of it. So, well, when nothing's happening, like, why are you paying attention when it's caught up in red tape? It's
right.
Politicians,
right?
So,
absolutely.
And we also want to announce we are going to retire this podcast for the time being, because Soren's got a bunch of stuff going on. I actually have UNLV basketball coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, don't put it all on me. You've got a bunch of stuff going on.
I'm taking the blame. Tuesdays are going to be tougher for me in about 2 weeks, because there's either UNLV games on Tuesdays or a lot of UNLV travel a little after that. So we're going to retire this one. We'll consider whatever. We'll figure it out here. Yeah, for the time being. So check out Soren's highly successful football podcast. And I'll admit, actually, the biggest thing is I'm going to save myself from myself. So.
Of doing too much, of working too much, which you
getting a little loose with the content sometimes. So I've thought about it. I'm like, man, I got to be. This Gruden thing scared the F out of me. Not that I speak like Gruden. I will tell you truthfully, actually did. You were you interested in doing a email search for key terms that Gruden used?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
Did
because I
you?
did. I did. The homophobic F bomb was nowhere to be found because I don't use that word. Um, I will say the C bomb, man, I use that a lot, but it's mostly in my own notes where it's in my it's in my own show notes, and
Petro
then
is a
uh I won't say how I use it. I don't use it with women. It's more with guys.
right.
But
Right.
that was all over the place. So
That's when I would use it as well.
yeah, and I'm not going to blame you, but actually, I think I kind of learned it from you. But whatever. I was so impressed with your usage of it. I was like, wow, I never really use that word, but there are a lot of people in my life that I'm like, that
Yeah,
applies to.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Trust me. Listen, the language is colorful. It's there to be used. It's just when
Uh,
you use it and who's around and how you use it.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I did an email search, and I felt good about it. I felt good about it.
Good, good.
But let's be honest. The thing is, on a lot of the stuff Gruden said, I'm completely opposed to his viewpoints.
Right?
On NFL protest, and I'm a big Kaepernick guy, and I don't know. I watch games, NFL games, and I'm like, look at that giant fat ass who can't run as a referee. You know what? The last thing we want is a woman replacing him. Like it's just
God forbid.
like
Yeah.
I don't even get that. We did a whole thing today on Steve Levy last night was just raving about all the referees whose dads were referees in the Tennessee Buffalo game, and I'm like, yeah, like nepotism, Steve Levy, like not really. Like, let's try new people. We don't need 9 Hockuleys and 17 Blakemans. Okay,
Right.
like let's like women can probably do the same job.
Well,
So let's dial
in
it down.
particular, when the NFL refs suck as bad as they suck.
Yeah.
Right? Give me a break.
Dude, we go back to the beginning of the whole thing, and honestly, I think sports radio and sports media has this problem. This whole attitude that like this is a guy's thing. We don't want anything that's not a guy, and it's like, well, we need other viewpoints because believe me, we're more than flawed with our guy attitude. So, all right, well, have a good week. Thanks for watching. We're back tomorrow night, I think, with Judge Dan and probably Justin Watkins. No Adam Hill tomorrow because we got hockey. But like I said, we'll have a couple of spots tomorrow. That Rolovich thing is completely intriguing. So good for Nick. He fought for what's right. And